real.
He has a heart attack.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the channel today for a special interview. I'm very excited to talk about a film that by now, hopefully, you have checked out. It is Heist 88. It is available right now on Paramount Plus with Showtime as of September 19th. And I'm here to talk to the director about this film that you, again, want to make sure is on your to-do list. Nonetheless, I am with Menhaj Huda. Thank you so much for your time today. I really want to start in the very beginning because I had heard about this film coming down the pipeline some years ago. I think it was. I mean, anything with Courtney B. Vance in it, you're like, oh, I need to see what's up with that. But now that we got its release as of 2023, I know this was filmed last year. Kind of talk me through the timeline when you became a part of the project, whether Dwayne Johnson Cochran had messaged you or contacted you. Just kind of take me through the timeline here in terms of how you became the director of this film.
I knew that my manager rang me and said they're looking for a director for this movie, and I put you up for it. They want to meet you, and so I had my first meeting with Dwayne and Courtney, and some other people I think were on that meeting, or maybe not. And we just really got on. We seemed like on the same page about how the movie should work. And it sort of went from there, really. That was kind of in the spring last year.
Okay.
And things kicked off for us during the summer. It got greenlit, and we went straight into it. Like a bit of rewriting, just to make it more into some of my ideas, what I wanted to add to the movie.
Yeah.
And then we hit the ground running. Went to Chicago. Started prepping, and then we filmed pretty much end of July, August.
All right, so I guess so I can kind of draw a conclusion here. One, the pandemic played a part in terms of just getting off the ground here, which are very unfortunate times, and some films don't make it to the light of day because of that. So I'm definitely thankful that this one was able to get done and get released for everyone. When you talk about adding your aesthetic to it, and you've been a part of some of my favorite titles, The Flash, which iconic as it is, I think a lot of folks can agree that that's the best superhero television show of all time. The Winchesters, which was short-lived, but obviously a cult favorite for folks. Queens is something that my folks in my outlet, we covered extensively, really love that as well. I mean, the list goes on and on in terms of just a lot of good projects, but also the versatility. So when you talk about adding your touch to it, what would you say were some of the changes within the rewriting that you brought?
I wanted to make the script. I think the script felt like it was trying to be more like a drama than a thriller. Because there was more in it that was delving into the backstory of the young guys, the young people that get involved, which is really interesting and engaging. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a crime thriller, and I wanted to sort of just up the action on it. And something that you don't expect when you start reading a movie called Heist 88 is that the heist takes place, spoiler alert, over the phone. So it's not like people. You don't have like gangsters with guns running into a bank and shooting people up,
right.
Which is actually what I loved about the project. So in the sense that was really great and intense on the script, but I wanted to bring a bit more action into the finale and the sort of final sequence of it, which some of it made it into the movie and others didn't. So that was really what I was trying to bring to the table, and most people agreed that it needed that for the audience that we were trying to hit.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. And shall I add, again, you're the director. This was written by Dwayne Johnson Cochran, also EPs Angela Bassett and Courtney B. Vance. So just a fantastic cast as it is right there before you actually start to dive into the cast. The folks that's in front of the camera, these are folks behind the camera here. And then you ring Courtney B. Vance's name. Actually, let me start with a question really quick. Dwayne Johnson Cochran having a sort of cameo in this as well too. Could you talk about that decision making, and when did you sort of realize that that was going to happen?
Well, I was looking because we had lots of smaller parts in the script, and
Yeah.
I was desperately trying to find a role for him to be in it, and it ended up being the priest. And I was like, "Okay, are you sure you want to do this?" And he was like, "Yeah, I can do that. I wrote these lines, so I'm sure I can and do it." And he's a good speaker.
Yeah.
Essentially, he can get out in front of a congregation in a church and do exactly that. So it was not too testing for him, and I enjoyed it. That was actually our day one, like, of
Yeah.
filming, so it was really good fun. I'm really happy that we managed to drag him on screen for that one.
That's fantastic. Just to follow up with the legendary Keith David as well as Keisha Sharp, just to name a few, and a shout out to a name of somebody with this cast I wasn't familiar with is Xavier Clyde, who I got to tell you, man, the wild card of not only just the kids, but truly the wild card in the performances as well. This the character arc and just seeing the maturity within his performance, especially within that third act, should be noted. Could you talk about working with somebody, Clyde, who doesn't have that very extensive resume, but clearly is ready for some big prominent roles going forward? Xavier did a fantastic job here.
Yeah, I mean, he was. So we had an amazing casting director, Aisha Coley, and she presented us with these self tapes, and we when we came to the character of Danny, there's like a whole bunch of people that she sent us, but actually Xavier was like one of the first people that I saw, and I just couldn't get him out of my head. I was like, okay, that's the guy. Like, if there's going to be a guy that you're never going to suspect to be the one, he's
Yeah.
going to be that guy. And we went around and we shortlisted people, and but for me, as soon as I'd seen him, I really wanted him, and I'm really grateful that I managed to convince everyone else that that was the right choice. And yeah, like you say, he looks like he's going to go on to do a lot of other stuff, which bodes well for everyone, for our movie and for him. So I'm very happy for him.
1000%, 1000%. Another funny little tidbit in this film was the history of house music. So I'm just going to be candid here. Born in New Jersey, and although I won't say that my heart is in New Jersey, but my family's is. They kind of moved me pretty quickly from there to the DC area. But I'm sure if I send out a text message and I say, "Hey, where was house music made?" They're going to say New Jersey, and they're definitely going to say not New York. Which only for this film to make it clear that, oh, Chicago has made a claim that they are the star is. So obviously I know you're a fan of music and know some history as well too. Educate me here on this one.
Well, let me tell you something. I start reading the script. There's a scene in the Warehouse Club in 1988 in Chicago, and Marshall's character is DJing at this club. Now, what was I doing in 1988? I was playing those records as a DJ in the UK. So I was well aware of what was happening. And I have all the Chicago house records, the 12-inch records, the albums, all with me still to this day. So as far as I know, and my knowledge of the history of this music, I never saw New Jersey on that map ever mentioned once. I heard a lot of Chicago, bit of Detroit techno, and garage from New York. But New Jersey didn't quite make the list for me. Sorry. And you know what I'm talking about, because in the UK, this stuff was blowing up big time. And that's where the music really hit. And so, I was going to all the clubs, I was DJing, I was partying, and just, it was just an exciting time because it was like a new sound in music that nobody had ever heard. It was like from outer space, and it was just incredible. I loved it. And that's so to be back here after all these years to be making a movie which has a scene in that club was like, just like, I got to make this movie. Like, this gotta be my thing. So
That's amazing. All right, well, I won't be one to argue that. I'm just saying, when a family get together and they want to have their conversations, that's something that's typically get put on the table. But
I'm going to ask you one question though. Who's
sure
the
thing.
biggest DJ that came out of New Jersey?
I can give you an answer. I can't give you an answer. Not at all. And then there's a whole nother like sub argument between house music and club music in Baltimore and like who's the originator of that sound. So, maybe we
Now,
gotta
hey,
set up
listen,
something.
I can tell you that in Baltimore, I know that they had the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore sound. The go-go music came from there, right? So
Yep.
I still have some
That
of
I
those
do know.
that I buy into. But
Yeah.
house was a different sound.
Yeah. I definitely can speak to the go-go, but as far as Baltimore and their club music and New York and New Jersey and their house music, I don't know there, but yeah, but funny conversations to be had. So the film Heist 88, obviously because the heist of 1988 is being billed as one of the biggest bank robberies or bank heist of all time, where $80 million is in question. I didn't go do my research because I knew I was presented an opportunity to speak with you about it. But the film is out, so I definitely want to talk a little bit about spoilers here. So I will flag once I get to that part. But I do want to know when you were first exposed to the story, like, what hat were you wearing? Were you already in director mode? Were you like, all right, I'm gonna do this project, or did you kind of get into historian mode where he's like, let me look this up a little bit more and kind of, give some context?
Yeah, I think I had to be led by Dwayne really because he was there when it happened in Chicago. You know, he was a reporter, he was a journalist, he was a producer. So when that story broke on TV, he was there. He was one of the people that was involved in breaking that story, which is how he came about it in the first place. The
Mm,
original story, those true events. But in terms of the movie, by the time I came on board, like I said, we really hit the road running. I didn't really have time to be like, hey, let me go back and research the real story and see what else we can put in
yeah.
because I had like 5 weeks to prep the movie and then we start shooting, so we have to
Yeah.
basically and like I said, my focus, I could see from the script and from what Dwayne had told me that the original story is a very different story. The event is true. Like they did steal that money by using the people that worked in the wire transfer department. That's all based on true events. But in
Hmm.
terms of the Jeremy Horne character and the young people that get kind of caught up in his plan, that's all fictionalized. And so to sort of unwrap any of that would be months, if not years. So, and they wanted to get this in the can and moving forward. So, I didn't really have the option or opportunity to go and do any more delving into the real story. The only thing I will say though is it was great to have Dwayne with me, on location in Chicago because he could take me to the actual building of the
Mm,
Chicago, and we used that only because it's an iconic looking building. I
yeah.
looked at it and went, "That's great. We've got to try and use that," and we managed to get the right permissions to be able to do that. But beyond that, and the other locations which we found, which still looked a bit like the 80s, which we got away with in redressing and cars and all that, the vehicles. But in to be honest, for me, in terms of getting back into the story, it would have been a different process. So yeah, I had to just jump in there and direct the coolest movie I could.
Oh, you succeeded for sure. 1,000% you succeeded. This cool movie is definitely a good attachment to that. Um, yeah, and also I think it's just funny, and whether we realize it or not, back, should I say pre 9/11, a lot of things were different. And obviously we seen that things were getting was getting should I say digitized or getting automized, maybe that's the
Yeah.
word. I don't know. After the manual process of how they were, transferring these unique identifiers to one another in order to like do the transaction. And I reference pre 9/11 because you start to think about the TSA the lack of TSA error in terms of airport security and whatnot. So like we came a long way as an American society in terms of like the security measures that we have into place. So when you think about how easy, should they say, and while it was a process nonetheless, just how easy it was for somebody to scout out these folks, recruit them, give them an incentive, and they pretty much executed. They just didn't do their background check on everybody that was involved. Lets me think that while 80 million was a big heist, who's to say that it wasn't another couple of little millions that floated around that nobody was able to track, So
Well,
I want to.
yeah, I think you're right. I think there was. I don't think the money was like returned. From my knowledge, I may be wrong here, but as far as I know, that's why we left it slightly open ended in the movie, because like we, there was also, again, like the story from Dwayne was that they tried to cover it up. The bank actually was embarrassed that, if I'm being honest, that a group of black people managed to steal this money off them, and they were like, they tried to kind of ignore that fact, like, just let's see if we can get away with not telling anyone about this, because that was somehow more important to them than the fact that they lost all this money. That tells you a lot about what was going on in those days, I would say. And it was something that we touched on in the script, but I'm not sure it made it into the movie as much, because it was something that Dwayne was really keen to try and include in, but it was just difficult to pace it in, in the heat of, like, the finale of the movie, like, to squeeze that in as an additional beat just didn't quite work. So yeah,
Right.
but that's
And and as a person, I mean, somebody who just consumes a lot of, either television or movies, I love the open-ended sort of just think tank part in terms of just interpretation, in terms of how we are going to perceive things. Because literally one of my biggest questions, and obviously I can come up with my own sort of just depiction of how all of this plays out, but I think it was really great to see like the two characters, Danny and Jeremy, have that sort of look at one another. There's a little level of duality too, because it's very clear that Jeremy is like the villain. He's the one that's orchestrating all this. He's the ringmaster. And he's so smart. This entire movie, he's calculated about how he's always 3 steps ahead of everybody. These people work for me. I own all of this.
Yeah.
And every single time I get an opportunity to get this free money or loose money that the bank have, I take possession of it, however he worded it. And so you got all these proteges of his. It's kind of like, wow, he's living a life. He's kind of doing this. Like, oh, wow, this is our way out. Just to have that moment at the end where Danny sort of gives that look like, bet you didn't count for this one, my friend. So I definitely was going to ask you, like, what was your interpretation, or what should we be thinking about with it? But I think along with the bank assessment of the black people still in it, I mean, by all means, everybody should have put that together. But yes, if you can sort of give extra commentary in terms of that look at the end.
I mean, obviously, as the filmmakers, we knew the twist that was coming. Like, but what you don't want is to give that away in any shape or form during the story. We didn't want Danny to give that away. I mean, he talks about the fact that he's leaving his pregnant wife, which, yeah, it's like, that's a big deal for anyone to do. But you can also buy into the fact that, if he ends up with all this money, he's going to be reunited with her, wherever, and everything. They're going to live happily ever after, and she will understand why he did it. So that side of it worked fine. It's just like, as you get into the final sequence, it's really important that we don't give it away until, even when they're getting arrested, we still don't know until we, as the filmmakers, go back in time and tell you what happened and what Danny actually did. So that, that's where the strength of the whole piece came together, I think. And yeah, I think that's what gives it a much better ending than what actually really happened.
Yeah. And when you sort of address the racism within the current work environment or work climax at the current time, it is at in one notion seeing that there are black people hired within this bank in sort of prominent positions, and we even see characters even having particular one-on-ones with their superiors in a way that doesn't quite indicate that there is a racial tone going across it, which is to me is perfectly articulated, and it's also very alarming that in 1988 that these things were happening still now to 2023, where we think like, oh, there is no racism involved here, there is none of that prejudice going on here. But I love again your assessment of, at the end of the day, the bank, which the bank does have a job in terms of holding their integrity, in terms of making sure that people's funds are protected in the way that they are promising. But as you mentioned, it was never about that at all. It's like, hey, we're just flat out embarrassed that black people stole our money. We're not sure where it's at. Not that that's a big problem for us. It's just a PR nightmare that we're going to and have to endure because of this, which is, again, just shows you just how unfar we've come as a country at times. Alarming at that.
That's pretty much it. Like, yeah. But I mean, you do have to wonder, like, that was the other thing. Like, you have this incredible, like, power sort of status building right in the middle of city, and on the top floors you've got these amazing offices, and but in the basement is where these people work, right? And that was the thing, is like you've got like the powers that be that have the luxuries at the top, but down below is like where you have people working on minimum wage,
Mm-hmm.
essentially doing a lot of the work, and their working conditions are pretty grim, and you wouldn't believe that that existed within a building like that, right?
Yeah.
And that was also something that we were trying to portray. And then Danny comes up with that story. His buddy Joe, does the right thing and finds all this missing money, and he doesn't. The guy that actually they caught him doesn't even get fired. Like, he's still like so it's I know we needed to explain that. I mean, it was really important that we managed to lay the sort of foundations of why these people would be doing this kind of thing, because they really we do have the character of um, Rick's character, who really wants to work at the Board of Trade, and he does get that opportunity. But we see that he's frustrated because he's really expecting that promotion to be in the bank, and it's
Yep.
actually he gets that opportunity outside the bank because he has a boss who kind of feels sorry for him and manages to make that for him. And so that also, I think, helps balance out that it's not like the whole world is in that shape, but it's like the majority of the banking community that just didn't want to see those people. Like, that's
Yep.
that's how it usually pans out.
Yep. Yep. So I think for my final question is, we're going to just have just a little fun. While the money is definitely in purgatory, maybe if you had to kind of write up or direct a couple of more scenes afterwards, where would you land this money, or how would you want to see the story of the money play
Well,
out?
I mean, what I would love to do, and I call upon Dwayne, who's the creator of these stories, that is that there's another story to be told. Like, what happens between um, Dwayne and sorry, between Jeremy and Danny. Like, is he gonna sit in prison and let this guy get away with this? Knowing that he's actually got the money sitting in Geneva or whatever. That he knows
Mhm.
that that's there. So is he going to come up with a game plan to get access on that? And then maybe is he going to do something about Danny, who's maybe in witness protection or something like that? Who knows? It would make a
Mm.
really interesting story in a movie, I think. So I would that's one of the benefits of leaving it that open-ended, that we can, maybe go down some other rabbit holes and find
Yep.
an even better story and revive Jeremy Horne's next chapter.
I'm with it. I'm 1,000% with it. I do agree that there's a lot of stories, a lot more story to be told with the four kids, and now that they sort of got their immunity, I guess, from the situation. What does life look like? They have to go back to the reality of everything they were trying to run away from. So what does that look like? And they definitely can't go back to their job. So things just got a
Right.
little bit more rough. And then Jeremy, as he mentioned, he's only guilty of being caught. So it doesn't look like he's going down without a fight, which is definitely interesting. And plus, listen, more Courtney B. Vance. Who's going to complain about that?
Absolutely. I would love it. I would love it.
All right. So, Menhaj, I want to ask you for the final question here. Again, just really a fan, and again, a pleasure to talk to you today. Really a fan of your resume and all the projects you've been involved with. And it looks like you haven't slowed up at all from working. So that means we're going to just a little bit pull back the curtains here just to see what might you have coming down the pipeline that we can
You
get
know what?
myself and fans get excited for.
It has been a slow year, obviously, because everything's been on pause, during the
True.
strikes, and now we're still on pause. So even though there's talk of, certain shows coming back, whatever, it's like I have to wait now until the
Yeah.
strike is completely over before we know what's happening next. And it's looking like it's going to be in the new year rather than this year, which is very frustrating because
Yeah.
we all just want to get back to work and start making some more fun projects. So I wish I could tell you that I'm definitely coming back to do X, Y, and Z, but right now I can't. So
Well, I
I
tell
have
you what, we will definitely as fans or anybody who's just involved in entertainment, we're going to just uh keep pushing until we able to get a resolution to the strike. We want to make sure that these actors, writers already got their deal, but hopefully we get the actors to strike a deal, and everybody can get back to work, and we can continue to consume the amazing entertainment that you all provide for us. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for what you may be having come after we go through get through this little additional hiccup in terms of doing what I do best. It was the pandemic and then the strike. So hopefully, we just put all that stuff behind us and move forward together on better terms. But in the meantime, folks can check out Heist 88, which is available right now on Paramount Plus with Showtime as of September 29th. Menhaj, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and we'll definitely have to keep in touch and do it again very soon.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. And
Absolutely.
oh yeah, and if people do watch the movie, please go and give us a good rating on the IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, because we could do with some more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You heard them. Get to it, folks. I'll leave that in the comments below so you can find where the movie's at. Also help you get over to those critic sites and get your ratings up there and let the world know what you think. But again, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a good one.
Thank you.
I